first, although there is a very good website available at centreport.uk, which does explain quite a lot about the project. But we really wanted to hear your views on the understanding that we can then answer those questions and your concerns and worries, and make sure that you go away from here with a much better understanding, perhaps, of what is and what is not going to happen. The need for a flood defence and a deep sea container terminal is very clear in our opinion. But the government policy at the present time is certainly for the UK to generate more and more of its own energy. After the Russian attack on Ukraine and the other problems that are going on in the world, we need more energy that we're delivering in this country. And one way to do it is through windmills, solar, and also tidal energy. The UK is very, very well placed. It has a most unusual tidal range around the UK compared to many other countries. In the southwest, you have huge tidal range differences of 16 metres, and in the North Sea, it's around about 4.5 to 5 metres, depending upon where you are. I just want to make one thing absolutely clear, just so you know. Back in 1990, I privatised Boston Docks, and I ran that port for 10 years. So I do understand about the wash. I'm a Lincolnshire born and bred person, and I do understand what people are saying here today about their concerns, about the ecology, and so on and so forth. But I will come on to that in a moment. So tidal energy is important to the UK, in particular, to maintain its independence and its energy needs. And that means that we have to do something. Can I just move on? Can I just press one of these? So therefore, building just a tidal energy project is never going to work. We've seen that in the Severn, we've seen that down in Cardiff, the various schemes down there. It just isn't viable to just make electricity. We have to have other reasons and other income sources. So here, there is a flood defence opportunity, and that does create an opportunity. We can put a smart port on top of it, the world's first tidal-powered deep-sea container terminal. Now that's really quite a big mouthful, but it's also absolutely unique, and it will be a great project to show off to the rest of the world how it can be done. It will be zero pollution. It's purely run on electricity that is generated in the foundations of the structure. It creates more international trade for the UK. At the moment, people mention about Felixstowe, people mention about other container ports in the UK. I assure you, they are all full. There is no more capacity. Felixstowe has empty containers sat around in fields. Mega ships coming into Felixstowe, London Gateway Container Port, are waiting around for weeks at $250,000 a day running cost. We are losing import-export capability. Maersk took a ship route out of Felixstowe a few months ago and put all the traffic straight through Rotterdam, and they're trucking the UK traffic back through Dover, which is causing more and more congestion in Dover. That's lunacy. What we need is more container port capacity. We need to be more efficient. We shouldn't be making more pollution. We do not want to pollute the sea. We do not want to pollute the air around the container terminal. What we also provide, of course, is a levelling up capability. Jobs for people in South Lincolnshire are almost zero. Jobs in Norfolk in some areas are also very few and far between. And what we want to do is create an employment opportunity in these two areas by joining them if we can, and I'll come back to that. But certainly employment, different types of employment is very important for this region, not just farming. One of the other things that hasn't been talked about very much so far is climate change. Climate change is something we're all responsible for. You know, we're all driving around still in our petrol cars, our diesel engines, trucks and everything else. And our dear friend Mr. Rishi Sunak has just pushed back the date when we actually have to change to electric cars as well, which seems total madness to me. But anyway, there we are. People really aren't changing their habits that much, but we have to do something. But climate change will get worse and worse. It will accelerate. We're seeing it already. and it's having a very negative impact. You know, when you see 1 million people displaced in Pakistan because of floods, just imagine if that happened here in the UK.
That's river flooding, not sea flooding. Be honest with the people.
Excuse me, there is such a thing as increasing sea level. This is not my picture, it's one that's been generated to show the impact of sea level rise on this area if nothing happens. That is an area of about at least 500,000 people that will be underwater. Most of that area is 1 to 2 meters above sea level. If sea level rises another 1 to 2 meters in the next 50 years, which it's predicted to do, this area will be underwater.
If that's the case, why are banks still lending money to people to buy houses there then, unless you'll be underwater then? Why are the banks still lending them money to buy houses?
I don't run a bank, sir. I'm not saying that.
Will you let the speaker get on with it for the benefit of everybody else? Yes. Thank you.
As I said to you at the start, sir, this is not my prediction. It's a prediction by a very capable series of individuals and institutions that shows what happens if tidal is... As I said to you at the start, sir, this is not my prediction. It's a prediction by a very capable series of individuals and institutions that shows what happens if the sea level rises. Okay? So just understand that, please. If climate change does get worse, and we've seen that recently last weekend in Lincolnshire, where the whole of the Boston, above Boston going up to Lincoln is completely flooded. You can go and see it now if you like. A river that is only, 50 yards wide is currently 300-400 yards wide. It's flooding the countryside and it's still there to see today. Just past my house, up near Lincoln as well, in the Wolds, we had a flood there that completely covered the lower fields of the area and actually flooded Horncastle as well, despite the fact that the Environment Agency built a mud dam to stop it happening. So we do have a climate change problem, whether you like it or not. Individual flood schemes around the Wash are too expensive and do not really serve a purpose that's going to be effective in the long run. The risk of flooding will also become uninsurable. And as you say in your case, the houses that you're living in will not be insured when the flood arrives. Therefore, you've lost everything. The area in the red area is also a major source of food. It represents around about 33% of the UK's fresh vegetable production. Once you get salt water into the land, it takes at least 5 years before the crop starts to grow again. We've seen that already at Wainfleet, and we've seen it in Boston around in that area as well, where the floods have happened. The Wash is mainly made up of shallow areas, as has been highlighted before. The green areas on this map show sandbanks, which are only about 2 meters underwater. In order to minimise the cost of construction, we are using these sandbanks for the initial phase, which is the container terminal on the Lincolnshire side. That is the first phase of this development. We will build a road out from Wainfleet and build the container terminal on that sandbank. There is sufficient depth in that area to actually take one of the world's largest container ships. They do draw, as I said earlier, around about 18 metres when they're full. So we can minimise the cost of the project by doing that and enable the largest ships to berth straight from the sea, straight onto the terminal. A series of sluice gates, when we build the hydroelectric facility, will control the water coming through the Wash into and out of the Wash as may be required, but otherwise it will flow naturally in and out of the wash. That is the whole idea of it. There will be multiple turbines across that deep section that will enable the existing flows to continue. We're talking about 20, 30, 40 turbines in that structure. It's more like a colander than any form of dam or barrage or any of these other words that have been used. It is absolutely full of turbines, because we want to pick up the power from those turbines to give you in this area, and also in Lincolnshire, renewable energy. So you're not polluting the world either. The problem as we see it is that Hunstanton is losing its sandy beaches through erosion, and tourism will start to die in the area if you haven't got sandy beach. The shoreline is changing faster than predicted. In fact, it's about 20 years ahead of its predicted change. And as a result of this, all the holiday caravans and homes down the coast down here are at risk, and that means a loss of jobs. Centreport could solve this problem by stopping the flooding in the area and also managing the flow of water in and out of the wash so that we don't have these flooding issues. Environmental issues in the wash are extremely important. As I said, I have 10 years as a statutory harbour authority running Boston, and I know exactly the difficulties of the wash that have been talked about before. It is a highly complex environment. But again, we've got to come back to the impact of climate change on the wash and also sea level rise on the wash. And that is also a very real concern. You know, what does happen to the wading areas? What does happen to the feeding areas? We need to look into this with our colleagues who have been up here this evening and do detailed studies into all these impacts before we build anything. And we will spend at least the next 4 to 5 years investing in those studies, working with people to ensure that we actually get the right answers. If it turns out that this project is going to disrupt the wash to any major extent, adverse extent, we don't have to build it. We don't have to build it. But we will be building the container terminal. And we will be building the turbines on the basis of detailed assessments and the relevant marine, weather, fish studies that will take place. The picture on the right hand side here. It is an actual picture, but it's not here yet. What I'm trying to say to you is that over the next 5 years, we're going to be working with the Environment Agency, the RSPB, the Inland Drainage Boards, who already have informed about what we've been doing. We've been having conversations with all of them, Water Resources East, Anglia Water, and all the other interested parties around here. We started some of that work, but this project was only started a year ago. It hasn't been around that long, in actual fact. And it will take years to get all these studies and investigations completed. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time. But Centreport can at least control the incoming tides and storm surges in the future if we complete the whole structure across to Norfolk. We can also ensure, by holding back a tide, as requested by one of the water companies, that we could hold back a tide and release water from the drains and from the rivers coming into the wash on the next tide, so that it doesn't back up and flood the countryside. And that is really quite a useful tool that we have in the box, as it were. So we can actually save the countryside ahead of a storm or a flood, a landslide flood. Centreport is a multi-layered solution. It has to be viable. It can provide a total defence of the area down your coastline, which is recently stripped of sand because of the changing pattern of the wash. We are providing green power for green industries, and in fact, in that situation, we are having discussions with people as far away as the East and West Midlands at the present time. It is a job creation and levelling up project. We will be employing several hundreds, if not thousands, of people during the construction stage of this project, and then employing hundreds of people on the structure itself to operate the container terminal, the power requirements, the security requirements, the ship requirements, and so on and so forth. And most of all this is going to be on the Lincolnshire side, I have to say. None of it is going to be this side because the roads aren't suitable and there's very little space for industrial development in this part of the country. So it will be away from you, it won't interfere with you. And just on the point, by the way, the earlier point about what about the trucks, we will not be sending trucks across into Norfolk, the roads just can't stand it.
And what about the public trucks?
The other point about the creation of this structure is it will reduce insurance premiums. I've already had a conversation with one of the biggest insurers in London, and insurance premiums will level out, and on the basis that if we can hold back the flooding of the homes and the houses and the businesses in this region, then insurance premiums will tend to level out. We'll also create an eastern powerhouse in this area by joining Lincolnshire with Norfolk and vice versa, and making a connected development for the region. We will create a focus for inward investment as well in the Fens, and push councils and the Department of Transport for better roads, better social services, and therefore a better quality of life here. The centreport link into Norfolk, as and when it is constructed, will be a minimal visual impact. It will come 90 degrees onto the beach, and it will be a sand bund all the way. The advantage you will have here in Hunstanton, if it comes in nearby here, is it will create a 4-mile inner beach facing west. So you'll be able to sit on the beach in the evening and see the sunset go down. You can't do it at the moment. You can't do it at the moment. Well, at least we've broken the ice a bit. So basically that is an option. That is an option. The container port's on the other side there. As part, sorry, I got a limited amount of time. The design of the structure would include natural habitats and seagrass, as well as nesting areas for birds, and potentially we can build new islands to replace the ones that are lost by sea level rise. While we're here, we might as well. The connection to Norfolk will boost local tourism, and I think in terms of Hunstanton's position in the future, it will become the northern gateway for Norfolk. The access will give you a 20-minute journey across to Lincolnshire, opening up routes to Lincoln, opening up routes to Lincoln and York. I've nearly finished, don't worry. So we envisage a situation here where you benefit as effectively the northern gateway for Norfolk. Finally, there are other benefits that we can bring to this area. We can bring safe sailing, water sports, development of marinas along the coast, and working with Norfolk for the regeneration of the old parts of King's Lynn, Wisbeach and Sutton Bridge to bring them back to life again. There are potential improvements in road infrastructure on the Lincolnshire side. We've been talking to Boston Council now for nearly 9 months about that, as well as the potential to dual the road down to King's Lynn from here as well. You don't want it, fair enough. So in conclusion, if you're not going to listen to me, I'll sit down. The smart port, which is centre port on the other side near Lincolnshire, is required. It is needed, and it's the state-of-the-art container terminal run on renewable energy. We will provide renewable energy for Norfolk homes and businesses as well as Lincolnshire. We can include a flood defence aspect that will save the fens in future years and generations. It'll be a zero carbon operation and therefore offset against the carbon produced by people driving around in their cars and trucks and so forth. We have the ability to create a new beach with offsets for other investments in the region. We also want to make a major contribution to saving the wash natural areas, the wetlands and marshes, and farming from global impacts in the future. Thank you very much.